What if looking on the bright side was quietly dimming your inner light? While positivity is often praised as the ultimate solution, could it secretly be drowning out your real emotions, making it harder to heal and grow? Beneath every relentless smile can lurk silent struggles, unspoken pain that festers every time you force yourself to see only the good. This book isn't just another beacon for false hope. It's your guide to seeing behind the mask, understanding the hidden costs of compulsive optimism, and finally making room for your true self. Are you ready to uncover what lies beneath the sunshine? Unmasking Positivity, the hidden damage of always looking on the bright side, written and published by Mindset Liberation. Chapter 1. The Smile That Lies. We live in a world that worships the smile, a universal symbol of happiness and success. Yet, buried beneath the surface of that perfect grin, an insidious struggle brews, one harder to name and even harder to share. It's the act of masking pain with positivity, tucking away sorrows so deep beneath the everything's fine facade that even we start to believe the charade. The smile that lies is more than an act. It's a silent contract forged by cultural norms, family expectations, and endless social media feeds flooded with curated happiness. Roots of this phenomenon stretch back through generations, with many of us taught that expressing worry, sadness, or frustration means weakness. Cheer up, we're told, or it could be worse. These well-meaning phrases become the chains that bind us to a single, sanctioned emotional state. Consider the expert insight of Dr. Susan David, a psychologist at Harvard Medical School, who describes the phenomenon as emotional rigidity, the relentless pressure to show optimism regardless of what we feel on the inside. A growing body of research suggests this pressure is not just stressful, but dangerous. One study, published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, revealed that individuals who habitually suppress negative feelings in favor of forced positivity are significantly more likely to suffer from high anxiety and depression. According to the World Health Organization, depression now affects more than 264 million people globally, and many struggle silently, their despair masked by a smile that deceives everyone, including themselves. For Emma, this mask became a daily ritual. She'd arrive at work every morning, coffee in hand, mouth upturned in a bright, unwavering curvature no matter her mood. Even as her father was falling ill, even as sleepless nights left her trembling with exhaustion, her colleagues would praise her resilience and unstoppable optimism. Privately, though, Emma's acts of emotional concealment began to impact her psyche. The more positivity she projected, the lonelier and more inauthentic she felt, imprisoned by the expectation that she should be everyone's ray of sunshine. This problem flourishes in the age of digital connectedness. Social media, with its endless scroll of filtered joy, turns the smile into both shield and weapon, used to obscure real struggles from anyone who might notice, but also as a tool to compare oneself against others' seemingly effortless happiness. The cultural norm of positive vibes only denies us the language and safe space to voice unhappiness or fear. Each time we demand ourselves or others to look on the bright side, we inadvertently pile another stone onto this heavy, invisible wall. Unmasking the smile that lies is a crucial first step. Only when we see how universal and damaging this habit can be, do we recognize its grip and begin to understand its origins. To shatter the illusion that hurting means failure, and to accept that authentic emotion, light and dark, is a sign of our humanity, not its flaw. This chapter invites you to question the smile, to pierce its surface, and find what truth has been hidden in plain sight all along. The smile that lies isn't simply an emotional mask. Over time, it carves deep grooves into our psyche, fundamentally altering how we experience and process our inner world. When positive fronting becomes the only acceptable reaction, even in the privacy of our own minds, emotions that beg for acknowledgement are dismissed or buried. Eventually, these emotions twist in the dark, taking on new, more insidious forms: resentment, numbness, and quiet despair. Making every effort to stay upbeat, we train ourselves to ignore our inner weather, sending confusing signals to our ability to self-soothe and self-advocate. Decisions become fraught because authentic feelings, which instruct us on what matters, get lost in the noise of what we think we're supposed to feel. Studies cited in the Clinical Psychological Review confirm that people who continually practice emotional suppression experience higher levels of psychological distress. The dissonance between outer pretense and inner reality slowly chip away at their capacity for honest introspection. Take the case of Michael, a devoted father and successful manager who was admired for his contagious optimism. His family and coworkers saw him as unshakable, someone who could take any hardship and twist it into opportunity. Yet, each time he shrugged off disappointment or loss, he felt a sharp pang, a quiet alarm he taught himself to mute. Decisions about his son's education or disagreements with his spouse were made to maintain harmony, not because they reflected his actual values. Over the years, this constant emotional performance led him to lose touch with what he truly wanted, making his accomplishments feel empty and his relationships strangely disconnected. Relationships are perhaps the most poignant casualties of a dishonest smile. When negative emotions remain unexpressed, loved ones sense there is something missing: depth, trust, and vulnerability. Friends and partners may feel shut out, unable to offer comfort or honesty in return. Ironically, efforts to protect others from negative energy often create emotional distance, an invisible barrier that neither party can clearly name. Psychologist Dr. Brené Brown has found in her research on vulnerability that genuine connections require the courage to reveal struggle and sadness as much as joy. People who avoid this openness, instead serving an unbroken stream of positivity, report higher levels of loneliness and dissatisfaction with personal relationships. Self-esteem, too, does not escape unharmed. Forced positivity sets an impossible personal standard that if we are not unfailingly happy, successful, or grateful, we are somehow failing. Underneath every staged smile, self-doubt festers. Wondering why happiness feels so unavailable leads to a vicious cycle of shame and still more hiding. This environment of relentless self-correction is a perfect breeding ground for imposter syndrome, that cruel voice whispering, "You're only pretending, and soon everyone will know." For many, it is easier to maintain the illusion than risk exposure. So why do so many of us fall into this trap? Cultural narratives, family scripts, and digital validations all conspire to teach us that positivity equals success, and that allowing room for pain means embracing defeat. We are told that attitude alone determines outcome, unaware that this binary view deprives us of fundamental understanding and healing. The fantasy of the smile is alluring because it promises acceptance and shelter from judgment, at least for a while. In the next section, we will expose the hidden warning signs behind this positivity mask, the subtle signals that so often go unseen until the damage is already done. The true manifestations of this hidden mental health issue are often far less obvious than we might expect. Most who suffer from the urge to continually wear a positive facade don't burst into dramatic confessions or exhibit visible distress. Instead, the signs reveal themselves in subtle but telling ways: a rising sense of alienation, fatigue that no amount of rest will cure, or a sense of dissatisfaction that lingers despite marked achievements. For some, the habit of smiling through struggles presents as chronic indecision or difficulty expressing personal needs and preferences, a trembling hesitation when asked about their true feelings, or a pattern of deflecting emotional questions with humor or shallow reassurance. Often these symptoms fly well beneath the radar, especially in environments where toxic positivity is culturally celebrated. For example, Sarah, a high-performing student and popular club leader, seemed the embodiment of success. Every time she felt the wariness of balancing academic pressure, parental expectations, and the complexities of friendship drama, her instinct was to simply smile brighter. When her closest confidant reached out for help during a depressive episode, Sarah felt paralyzed by her obligation to remain encouraging, eventually offering well-meaning but empty platitudes about looking on the bright side. When she returned home, the hollowness grew, a gnawing sense of not genuinely being seen, even by her own family. In time, the disconnect became physical: persistent headaches, tension in her neck and shoulders, and a digestive unease that shadowed every meal. These psychosomatic complaints are classic signals that unacknowledged feeling is seeking a way out. Todd's experience as a young teacher showed another side of the mask. Constantly praised by colleagues for his relentless optimism and dubbed the sunshine of the faculty room, Todd privately battled insomnia and bouts of irritability. Each day, he stuffed frustrations and professional disappointments behind a grin, even when school-wide changes clashed with his teaching philosophy or undermined his efforts to help struggling students. Over months, he found himself withdrawing from genuine conversations, becoming quick to offer encouragement or solutions long before understanding the actual problem. Deep down, Todd knew his interactions had grown transactional, performed rather than lived. The chasm between his projected certainty and his mounting unease expanded until burnout threatened to consume him entirely. Recognizing these patterns, whether in moments of emotional flatness, chronic health complaints, or the slow erosion of meaningful connection, serves as the critical first step toward healing. What often begins as a survival tactic can, if unchecked, become a prison, sapping our capacity to learn from difficult feelings and diminishing the richness of our lives. Only when we course correct and begin to name and validate what we experience do we unlock the possibility for authenticity and growth. Even now, reflecting on your own stories or subtle warning signs you have noticed, you may start to sense the outline of this hidden struggle, one shared quietly by so many. Understanding this issue is empowering, not defeating. By learning to unmask the smile that lies, you clear a path toward genuine wellness, richer relationships, and a life not constrained by the narrow demands of relentless positivity. In the next chapter, we will investigate the phenomenon of positivity as pressure, how cultural forces and internal narratives intensify the compulsion to feel good at all costs. Stay connected with Mindset Liberation for more insights and real-world strategies. We invite you to explore, question, and contribute your perspectives because every step forward benefits all who seek truth behind the mask. This inquiry is the foundation for authentic change, and your willingness to engage is the foundation for your own liberation. Chapter 2: When Positivity Becomes Pressure. Imagine the weight that lifts when you allow yourself to honestly experience every shade of emotion. Real change begins the moment you realize that the relentless pressure to always be positive is not a destiny, but a learned habit, one you can reshape. Societal expectations to keep smiling may be deeply ingrained, but they are not unbreakable. The solution begins with granting ourselves permission to be fully human, to feel joy, yes, but also anger, sorrow, and uncertainty. This honest acceptance becomes the fulcrum for powerful and lasting transformation. The roots of positivity pressure snake through early family life and branch outward into culture, education, and media. Many of us were gently or sternly coached into hiding uncomfortable feelings, told that crying was weakness or that frustration was something to be suppressed. Schools often reward cheerfulness and compliance, while punishing open displays of sadness or dissatisfaction. As we grow, media and pop psychology extol relentless optimism, reinforcing the notion that success only follows those who radiate positivity. But reality, as shown by clinical psychologist Dr. Kristen Neff, contradicts these teachings. Her research demonstrates that people who practice self-compassion and emotional honesty, acknowledging what they feel rather than masking it, consistently report greater resilience and overall satisfaction. In workplaces, the solution emerges most vividly, shifting from conformity to authenticity. John, a team leader grappling with an aggressive turnaround and high staff turnover, once believed that positive thinking alone would rescue the situation. When results stagnated, he adjusted his approach, embracing openness and vulnerability among his staff. He invited his team to share their frustrations, admitted his own challenges, and suddenly found a wellspring of untapped resourcefulness. Within weeks, morale improved, lines of communication reopened, and solutions flowed from a place of genuine collaboration rather than forced optimism. The subtle transformation from positivity pressure to honest engagement ignited creativity, reduced burnout, and restored team confidence. Statistical evidence underlines this shift. According to the American Psychological Association, work environments that model authentic emotional expression boast retention rates up to 40% higher than those that adhere to good vibes only. Mantras. The desire to belong, to be seen and heard in all one's complexity is universal and when nurtured, becomes a cornerstone for innovation and satisfaction. The story is similar in personal relationships. Hannah, overwhelmed by the expectations imposed by her partner to always look at the bright side, grew exhausted and withdrawn. Only after their counselor empowered them to voice difficult feelings did they truly reconnect and rekindle their affection. This new approach allowed them to solve conflicts constructively and build a more resilient, caring partnership. By understanding these origins and seeing their prevalence in real life, you now stand at a pivotal point. You are not powerless. What has been learned can be unlearned and reshaped. When you begin to release the pressure and value your whole emotional spectrum, you reclaim your agency. Progress is neither linear nor simple, but it is entirely within your power to initiate. The journey forward is not about escaping negativity, but balancing it alongside hope and growth. This is how lasting confidence and control over your inner world are forged. While the societal script urges us to default to sunshine and smiles, research consistently shows that allowing room for genuine emotion dismantles the suffocating pressure of perpetual positivity and lets us breathe again. Embracing authenticity over performative optimism is not merely comforting, it is an act of self-preservation. Studies in the fields of clinical psychology and neuroscience reveal that acknowledging rather than repressing difficult emotions significantly reduces the risk of burnout, depression, and anxiety. This method is effective because it directly addresses the internal conflict between what we feel and what we present to the world. By honoring our own complex truth, the cycle of emotional suppression breaks and healing momentum gathers pace. A landmark paper published in the journal Emotion demonstrated how expressive writing, chronicling raw emotions without censorship, led to measurable reductions in stress hormones and improvements in immune function. The participants who allowed themselves to express not only happiness but also sorrow, anger, or disappointment reported higher clarity of thought, more grounded decision-making, and greater long-term well-being. This was not temporary relief, but a genuine, sustainable transformation. The act of letting go of the expectation to always maintain a cheery disposition granted individuals the breathing room to process, adapt, and ultimately thrive. The urgency of this solution comes alive through the story of Mark, a mid-level executive in a demanding financial firm. For over a decade, Mark had meticulously maintained what everyone called his Midas touch, a kind of tireless, radiant optimism that his team both envied and relied upon. He offered encouragement when projects missed the mark, brushed off setbacks as learning experiences, and prided himself on never letting negativity show. Slowly, he noticed cracks forming. He felt depleted, experienced persistent tension headaches, and started dreading morning meetings. His relationships with friends and family became shallow. His wife sensed his withdrawal even as he continued to insist, "Everything's good." With the encouragement of a therapist, Mark tried a new approach. Instead of reflexively searching for a silver lining, he gave himself permission to admit discomfort, both to himself and to those closest to him. The ripple effect was immediate and profound. His colleagues, relieved to discover they were not alone in experiencing pressure or shortfall, became more forthcoming with their own challenges. Team meetings shifted from thinly veiled pep rallies to collaborative forums where real obstacles could be aired and addressed. At home, Mark's transparency opened up space for deeper conversation and stronger emotional intimacy. The tightening in his chest receded and he finally felt he was living rather than performing his life. What Mark discovered, and what countless studies affirm, is that reality-based optimism, optimism that makes space for all feelings, not just the pleasant ones, is the cure for the poisonous pressure of false positivity. It enables relationships, both personal and professional, to deepen and transform in meaningful and lasting ways. The evidence overwhelmingly supports the necessity of this shift, not as a luxury but as an urgent matter of psychological health. The more urgently we accept the invitation to embrace our full humanness, the faster we begin to reclaim joy, agency, and strength. Allowing authentic emotion is not indulgence. It is essential survival, and it unlocks a resilience that simply cannot be born from forced happiness. Now that you understand the liberating power of replacing positivity pressure with emotional authenticity, the path forward becomes an empowering set of practical steps. Begin by carving out a few quiet moments each day to check in with your true emotional state. You do not need to fix what you find, only to witness it. Sit somewhere peaceful and in the privacy of your own mind or inside a notebook, finish the sentence. Right now, I'm feeling. Let yourself go beyond broad labels like good or fine and be specific. Maybe you recognize frustration, sadness, relief, hope, or confusion swirling beneath the surface. Without judgment or a rush to improve your mood, acknowledge these truths. You are planting the seeds of a new honesty with yourself, and that act alone is transformative. Next, bring intentional pause to situations that commonly trigger the instinct to paste on a smile. When someone asks how you're doing, pause before the automatic, "I'm great, thanks." Instead, offer yourself the option of a more genuine reply. A simple, "I'm getting through today," or "It's been a bit tough, but I'm managing." Not every interaction calls for deep vulnerability, but choosing honesty when it feels safe cultivates confidence. With each instance, the habit of shame surrounding difficult feelings weakens, replaced by self-respect and self-compassion. Strengthen this practice with expressive activities that let your feelings flow naturally. You could try free writing for 5 minutes about any recent disappointment, frustration, or moment of joy without editing your words or thoughts. If writing doesn't appeal, use voice notes on your phone or create a private ritual, such as a feelings walk, where you mentally review your emotional landscape without distraction. Over a week, patterns emerge, helping you identify certain triggers and decide when some extra kindness or boundary setting might be helpful. As the days pass, you'll notice these small actions accumulate. The relief you feel after gentle honesty and the deeper connections you build through genuine conversation stand as small but significant wins, each one evidence that your progress is real and lasting. Experiment, too, with watching yourself talk as though you were listening to a close friend. When you catch yourself silencing discomfort, gently ask, "What am I really experiencing right now?" Practice listening to this inner voice without the compulsion to immediately reframe it into something positive. This will feel odd at first, perhaps even risky, but every brave act of candid self-reflection loosens the unnatural grip of positivity pressure, proving to you that honesty is a foundation strong enough for all your hopes. As you keep building on these small victories, you'll find the inner resilience and self-trust that positivity pressure was only ever a poor substitute for. Let this be the first of many days when you allow realness, not perfection, to shape your emotional world. Looking ahead, you will next uncover the everyday habits that allow subtle emotional alarms to be ignored, and you'll learn how to hear and honor your true needs before stress turns to overwhelm. If you have found value in these steps, remember to subscribe to Mindset Liberation, share your progress, and comment with your experiences or suggestions for future topics. Every voice adds strength to this movement and furthers our collective journey toward authentic well-being. Chapter 3: Ignoring the Inner Alarm. Imagine transforming your relationship with discomfort from something you avoid to something that guides you. Each of us is born with an inner alarm, an intuitive warning system designed to alert us when needs aren't being met, boundaries are being crossed, or stresses are accumulating. Too often, the drive to stay positive drowns out these vital signals, detaching us from the wisdom our minds and bodies offer. Yet this silence is not irreversible. Strengthening your ability to listen for and respond to your inner alarm can become a powerful solution to chronic stress and emotional burnout. The roots of ignoring this inner alarm often begin early, shaped by family habits, cultural mantras, and the desire to avoid conflict. Many people remember being told as children to quit whining, to calm down, or to brush off nervousness before an exam, date, or job interview. Our society rewards resilience and self-control, but it rarely teaches discernment, how to listen closely when your emotions and body flash warnings that all is not well. Clinical psychologist Dr. Guy Winch notes, "We routinely respond to emotional pain by minimizing or dismissing it, a habit that leaves wounds untended and perpetuates suffering. This pattern is so widespread that research published by the American Psychological Association found more than 70% of adults admit to sometimes ignoring stress or emotional discomfort, citing fears of appearing weak or out of control. You do not need to remain stuck in this risky cycle. Reclaiming your inner alarm as a tool rather than an enemy is a skill that can be developed, one that fosters resilience, self-awareness, and renewed energy for real change. Take the example of Chloe, a nurse who excelled at handling crises on the hospital floor. She prided herself on her ability to power through night shifts, skipping meals and shelving worries to keep up with demands. But as weeks rolled by, she noticed mounting forgetfulness, persistent headaches, and sleeplessness creeping into her routine. Chloe's first impulse was to view these alarms as inconveniences, signs she simply needed to toughen up. Only when she paused to reconsider these internal messages did she recognize the need for rest, healthy food, and boundaries on overtime. By attending to her alarm, Chloe not only revived her physical health, but reignited her sense of purpose in her work and relationships. When you begin to view your inner alarm as a reliable partner rather than a nuisance, you reclaim a vital dimension of your health. You awaken the power to respond rather than react, preventing long-term damage and transforming stress from a silent threat into a navigational tool. The confidence to heed your inner alarm, not just to bear discomfort but to learn from it, reconnects you to a deeper, practicable sense of self-trust. The more you develop this clarity, the more in control of your progress you become. With practice, even moments of anxiety or fatigue become prompts for compassionate action rather than cues for denial. You have the ability right now to reverse the old pattern of tuning out discomfort and instead let your inner wisdom lead you toward balance, strength, and lasting well-being. When it comes to regaining control over your mental health, learning to acknowledge and respond to your inner alarm is a method rooted in both science and deep practical wisdom. One of the central reasons this approach is so effective lies in its impact on the body's stress regulation systems. When emotional discomfort is relentlessly minimized or ignored, the nervous system remains in a heightened state of vigilance, quietly accumulating tension and exhausting reserves. Over time, this leads to chronic stress, weakened immune response, and an increased risk for anxiety disorders and depression. Research from Stanford University's School of Medicine has repeatedly shown that emotional suppression triggers a continuous stress response, causing elevated cortisol and hampering decision-making. When you acknowledge challenging feelings as legitimate and worthy of attention, the cycle reverses. Your body can down-regulate the stress response. Not only body but also mind is soothed and more able to return to clear, purposeful action. This method is further validated by a significant body of research into emotional granularity, a concept pioneered by psychologist Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett. Emotional granularity is the ability to identify, label, and process subtle emotional states with precision, seeing anger as disappointment, fear, or frustration, for example, instead of a generic bad mood. People who practice this skill are markedly better at managing emotional upsets and less likely to be overwhelmed by life's inevitable strains. They are also more adept at adapting to change, sustaining healthy habits, and making decisions that honor their underlying needs, rather than masking them. Crucially, Barrett's work highlights profound links between emotional literacy, cognitive performance, and long-term happiness. This is illustrated in the story of Ethan, an architect who found himself ignoring growing fatigue and resentment as he balanced demanding clients and the struggles of a young family. For years, Ethan had internalized the belief that his discomfort was the mark of personal failure or a lack of gratitude. Instead of seeing his irritability and insomnia as valid signals, he willed himself to work harder, to simply get over it. The longer he tuned out these alarms, the more he struggled. Clashes at home increased, mistakes slipped into his work, and his health suffered. Finally, after a particularly fraught deadline, Ethan decided to name his exhaustion and to truly listen to what it was telling him. With the support of a counselor, he made practical changes. Seeking help when overloaded, delegating home duties, and giving himself short, restorative breaks between projects. To his surprise, the gloom began to lift. His relationships became warmer, focus returned, and his baseline mood improved. He discovered not weakness, but courage in responding to his own discomfort, and eventually described this shift as finally turning the alarms into guidance, not judgment. The stakes in ignoring your inner warning signs are real. The body and relationships, as well as the mind, suffer. Yet the path to healing is available through the simple, powerful actions of observation and response. Taking these cues seriously brings urgent relief, but more vitally, it also entrenches a deeper resiliency. The more seriously you learn to treat discomfort as a message to be honored, not dismissed, the further you move away from chronic overwhelm and toward a stable, empowered form of internal leadership. In this work, the urgency is matched by hope. Each moment of attention is a statement that your life is worth tending and your needs worth meeting. Turning your renewed respect for your inner alarm into daily practice starts with tuning in, not tuning out. Begin by dedicating a brief window each day, perhaps just 5 minutes, to a mindful check-in. Find a quiet moment and gently scan your body and mind for sensations or persistent feelings. Ask yourself, is there any part of me that feels tense, agitated, or drained right now? Note what surfaces, whether it's tightness in your chest, anxious thoughts, or a lingering sense of fatigue. Resist the urge to judge or solve. The very act of paying observant attention without immediately grandstanding over your discomfort or brushing it off is the foundation of reconnection and healing. Writing down a short sentence such as, "Today my mind keeps circling around that meeting," or "My chest feels heavy this morning," can capture signals you'd normally miss. Each check-in is a small but meaningful victory, a first gate that must open if you intend to respond to those signals honorably. The second step is to adopt a momentary pause before making decisions or responding under stress. When you notice an internal alarm, be it irritability, sadness, a burst of frustration, or simply a shadow of unease, try pausing for a slow breath or two before taking action. In this brief space, silently ask yourself what your discomfort is asking for. Sometimes it will want a break or a conversation. Other times it's a sign to set a firmer boundary, decline an unnecessary obligation, or simply to tread gently for the rest of the day. This technique, backed by behavioral science, interrupts your old habit cycle, replacing automatic suppression with intentional choice. You will likely discover you make clearer, kinder decisions when you let your alarm guide you rather than override it. To build consistency, create a signal tracker where you jot down internal alarms and which actions you tried to address them. Over several days, you're likely to see patterns. Perhaps your warning signs show up most often at work, around certain people, or during specific activities. Instead of letting these patterns sting, approach them with curiosity and use this awareness as a launch pad for practical self-care, rest, or gentle change in your routines. Celebrate the days when you turn a vague feeling of overwhelm into a specific action, even if that action is simply stepping outside for fresh air or sharing your mood with someone supportive. These small actions compound swiftly, building momentum and reinforcing the lesson that your inner warnings are tools for growth, not signals of defeat. Those initial wins, catching your inner tension before it spirals or addressing a persistent discomfort the first time it appears, are worth recognizing. They confirm that real change doesn't always require upheaval. Sometimes, progress is the sum of these mindful, honest check-ins stacked together over time. As you strengthen your capacity to honor and act on your internal alarms, you're not just escaping distress, you're reclaiming peace, clarity, and confidence. Looking ahead, you'll delve into the next stage, how persistent avoidance of uncomfortable realities traps us in the pattern of what's often known as toxic sunshine. This understanding will help you recognize when optimism isn't just a helpful mindset, but a barrier keeping you from real answers and durable well-being. To continue empowering your mindset awakening, subscribe to Mindset Liberation, share your reflections, and let us know what transformations you've started. Every bit of experience you offer strengthens the foundation of our growing community, and every engagement lights the path for the next reader. Chapter 4: Trapped in Toxic Sunshine. There is a powerful freedom in recognizing that optimism, while often helpful, can sometimes become a cage that limits real growth. The bright light of relentless positivity may seem warm at first, but when it blinds us to reality and silences our authentic self, it becomes what psychologists call toxic positivity. This chapter introduces a solution: conscious acceptance, the practice of meeting each moment with honest acknowledgement, rather than coating everything in a veneer of forced cheerfulness. The roots of toxic sunshine stretch deep into our cultural and personal histories. From self-help slogans painted on social media walls to well-intentioned relatives insisting that everything happens for a reason, the impulse to reframe every hardship into a lesson or blessing is everywhere. According to Dr. Whitney Goodman, a leading voice on the subject, 80% of people, she said, felt pressure to be positive even when deeply struggling. What starts as encouragement quickly tightens until it suffocates. Denying disappointment, burying anger, and leaving fear unspoken becomes a daily default. Yet millions walk this path, believing that the only way to demonstrate strength or maturity is to always shine, never strain. This struggle doesn't just take place in the abstract. Consider Marcos, a recent college graduate navigating unemployment. Each day, Marcos dutifully told friends he was feeling grateful for the opportunity to learn, afraid of being seen as bitter or negative. The truth, his anxiety about finances, the sting of repeated rejection, and grief over dreams delayed, remained hidden behind upbeat status updates. Eventually, the gap between his lived experience and outward persona became too wide to bridge. When in a moment of exhaustion, he dared to express his fear openly to a trusted friend, Marcos found unexpected relief and understanding. The simple act of honesty not only dissolved his loneliness but revealed a new way forward: realistic, unforced optimism grounded in what he felt and needed. Expert insights reinforced the importance of balance. Dr. Susan David, psychologist and author of Emotional Agility, reminds us that emotions are signals, not threats. To ignore them is to refuse key information about our well-being and growth. Studies in the Journal of Experimental Psychology have shown that suppressing unpleasant emotions does not eliminate them. It intensifies stress, diminishes creativity, and weakens immune defenses. The good news is that conscious acceptance, instead of clinging to sunshine only, actually creates greater resilience. By allowing space for difficult emotions, people show greater problem-solving abilities and recover more quickly from setbacks. You are capable of stepping out from beneath the harsh glare of toxic sunshine. When you turn toward rather than away from your complete emotional experience, you reclaim power over your mindset and make room for authentic progress. The journey begins not by extinguishing hope, but by broadening its meaning, embracing both bright and shadowed days as parts of a whole. The pages ahead will offer you the clarity and courage needed to transform shallow optimism into meaningful, enduring hope grounded in self-honesty. Armed with this mindset, you wield the true power to heal and thrive. The effectiveness of conscious acceptance in breaking free from toxic sunshine lies in its deep alignment with how the human mind and body are designed to heal. When people practice conscious acceptance, they grant themselves permission to experience the full range of their emotions instead of forcing a narrow spectrum of relentless positivity. This act is not just psychologically validating, it is physiologically transformative. Repression of so-called negative emotions results in a mounting internal tension that keeps the nervous system on high alert, making true relaxation and recovery impossible. Recent research published in Behavior Therapy demonstrates that individuals who mindfully accept their feelings, rather than judge or suppress them, show significant reductions in anxiety and depressive symptoms. These individuals are also far more prepared to manage setbacks, because conscious acceptance builds flexibility, fostering adaptive coping over brittle optimism. What sets this solution apart is its emphasis on realism and presence. Unlike forced positivity, which encourages us to look away from pain, conscious acceptance invites a steadfast engagement with whatever reality brings. It is about seeing things as they are and responding with openness rather than denial. Dr. Tara Brach, renowned psychologist and teacher of mindfulness, explains that acknowledging suffering as real is the first gateway to authentic healing. When we truly allow our emotions space, they begin to move through us, rather than stagnate or intensify. Far from weakening our resolve, this practice strengthens it. By repeatedly showing ourselves that feeling is not fatal, we build evidence that our minds can weather storms and that hope can exist, even in disappointment. A compelling illustration can be found in the story of Lila, a marketing director who had long excelled at appearing upbeat despite intense workplace turmoil. Whenever layoffs or budget cuts were announced, Lila fought to keep spirits high for her team and herself. However, inside, anxieties roiled. Questions about her future, anger toward leadership, and real grief over changes in company culture. Clinging to toxic sunshine eventually led to sleepless nights, migraines, and a sense of disconnectedness that impaired her work and her relationships. It wasn't until a therapist encouraged her to articulate and calmly feel her disappointment, worries, and anger that Lila began to reclaim her energy. In therapy, she practiced describing her emotions without apology or a quick pivot to gratitude. She noticed a swift decrease in stress headaches and soon was able to address problems at work more directly, since her honesty enabled clearer communication with her team. The willingness to feel her full reality rather than force optimism proved a turning point. Her overall effectiveness and satisfaction increased as she learned that conscious acceptance was not defeat, but the very means to lasting resilience. This evidence and real-life transformation highlight the urgency of adopting a method that trusts authentic emotion over superficial lightness. The cycle of toxic sunshine weakens when you simply allow yourself to admit, "This is hard," or "I feel lost right now." The more you practice conscious acceptance, the more capable you become of distinguishing healthy optimism from denial, turning every emotional experience, pleasant or painful, into an opportunity for genuine, stable growth. Making conscious acceptance a natural part of your life starts with small, intentional steps that help you shift away from the blinding effects of toxic sunshine and gently guide you back to authenticity. Start each day by setting aside a few minutes before the rush begins. Sit quietly, close your eyes, and check in with your emotional state. Ask yourself, what am I actually feeling? Name whatever arises, whether it's frustration, anxiety, excitement, or sadness, without demanding that the feeling changes or improves. The power of this act is in the non-judgmental naming. You are building new muscle memory, teaching your mind that every emotion has a place, and none are forbidden or signs of failure. Another exercise is the reality check journal. At least once daily, write down an event that happened and how you really felt about it, not the retouched, positive version, but the honest reaction. Did a friend cancel plans and leave you disappointed? Did feedback at work sting, even as you told yourself to look on the bright side? Channel every nuance onto paper. Separating the story you tell the world from the one you whisper to yourself is a leap of self-trust. Gradually, you'll begin to notice a drop in tension and the beginnings of real internal freedom with every honest entry. During challenging moments, practice a short acceptance mantra. Silently repeat, "This feeling is here. I don't have to like it, but I can sit with it." Use this mantra in traffic, after a difficult conversation, or when a cloud of guilt tries to overshadow a perfectly justified sense of anger or sadness. You'll be surprised at how, over a few days, the heavy grip of toxic positivity loses its hold. Each honest acknowledgement delivers a small win, a subtle relief, a kinder self-appraisal, an easier conversation, confirming progress that is both measurable and meaningful. For those who crave support, invite a trusted friend or partner to join your practice. Explain your intent to give every emotion airtime and ask them to simply listen, rather than fix or redirect your feelings. This creates powerful moments of connection and validation, helping you remain accountable to the promise of truth-telling. The more often you let an unfiltered emotional truth be spoken aloud and met with acceptance, the safer it feels to repeat the process, even alone. As your practice grows, pay attention to the ripple effects. You'll soon discover you no longer need to force optimism. Instead, hope becomes something natural and sturdy that lives beneath your honesty. This is real progress. Finding relief not from changing your feeling, but from changing your relationship with feelings themselves. Looking forward, the next chapter explores what happens to your health and sense of self when you chronically suppress the full range of emotions. It will equip you with even deeper tools for lasting well-being and prepare you for the amazing transformation that is possible when you commit to your emotional truth. If these exercises resonated with you or sparked a realization, subscribe to Mindset Liberation, share your experience, or comment with the mind shifts and small wins you've noticed. Every voice inspires someone else on their journey, so let's keep the movement growing together. Chapter 5: The Cost of Suppression. Freedom and healing often begin the moment you decide to stop waging war against your own emotions. When you habitually push down feelings, dismissing sadness, sidestepping anger, or ignoring waves of overwhelm, you don't just silence discomfort, you silence crucial parts of your authentic self. The core solution in this chapter is emotional expression, allowing yourself a safe, honest channel to voice what you feel. Rather than viewing upset or pain as threats to be conquered or hidden, you learn to treat them as meaningful messages that deserve to be heard. This single shift has the power to radically alter your mental, emotional, and even physical health. The habit of emotional suppression is deeply woven into the fabric of many cultures and families. Perhaps you were praised as a child for being the calm one, or learned to keep your pain to yourself so as not to upset others. In the professional world, employees are often encouraged to be solution-oriented rather than emotional, subtly implying that feelings are distractions, if not liabilities. Social norms reward emotional stoicism with words like strong and resilient. Even so, recent data tells a different story about the true cost of suppression. A survey in the Lancet Psychiatry found that people who regularly bottle up feelings are at a much higher risk for anxiety, high blood pressure, immune dysfunction, and insomnia. Dr. James Pennebaker, renowned psychologist and emotion researcher, has spent decades showing that habitual emotional suppression correlates strongly with both mental and physical disorders. Yet he also highlights that expressing our feelings can swiftly turn things around. Consider the real-life scenario of Malik, a corporate manager who prided himself on never letting stress show. Even when deadlines built up or conflict at home pressed in, Malik would simply retreat behind a mask of composure. Outwardly, he seemed perfectly in control, but internally, frustration and doubt accumulated unchecked. Eventually, the costs surfaced in the form of chronic fatigue, irritability, and sudden bouts of anxiety that threatened his work performance and his marriage. Worn down by exhaustion, Malik finally sought guidance from a mental health coach. Through small steps, he learned to express even a fraction of what he had felt for years. A simple conversation with his spouse, saying, "I am honestly struggling right now," offered such profound relief that it became the starting point for healthier coping strategies and strengthened connection. Expert insight is clear. Emotional expression is not a sign of weakness, but a vital component of psychological endurance. Dr. Brené Brown, a leader in research on vulnerability, states, "We cannot selectively numb emotions. When we numb the hard feelings, we also numb joy, gratitude, and happiness." This is a radical invitation to empowerment. When you choose expression over suppression, your world broadens with possibility, connection, and renewed strength. The journey ahead is no longer about mastery through control, but about transformation through courageous honesty. By granting your feelings an authentic voice, you access a new reservoir of resilience, one that will fuel every positive step forward from here. Choosing emotional expression over suppression is an act of profound self-liberation, as it harnesses the remarkable self-healing power inherent in the human mind and body. Emotional suppression acts like a dam holding back powerful currents. Though outward calm might be maintained, internal pressure continues to build beneath the surface, distorting well-being in the process. Neurological and psychological research provides a sobering yet hopeful perspective. When feelings are continuously shoved aside, stress hormones like cortisol remain elevated, undermining both immunity and mood regulation. Over time, the body internalizes this hidden struggle, resulting in sleep disturbances, headaches, muscle tension, high blood pressure, and susceptibility to illness. Scientific evidence from Dr. James Pennebaker and colleagues reflects the measurable benefits of emotional expression, especially in the form of verbalization or expressive writing. In clinical trials, individuals who consistently write about or talk through significant emotional experiences report lowered anxiety and less severe depressive symptoms than those who remain silent. Brain imaging studies show that when someone labels their emotions and brings them into conscious awareness, neural activity in the amygdala, the alarm center of the brain, diminishes, while the prefrontal cortex, associated with logic and decision-making, increases in activity. This physiological shift is why naming and expressing feelings makes people feel calmer, clearer, and more focused. In essence, authentic expression does not intensify distress. It helps stabilize emotions and grant the mind space from which solutions can naturally emerge. The urgency of embracing this method is clear when you encounter the journey of Taylor, a parent and teacher who spent years bottling up disappointment and sadness for the sake of holding it together for others. Taylor thought that by staying composed at home in the classroom, their strength would support family and students alike. In truth, their mounting silence led to irritability, feelings of isolation, and eventually, to a sense of disconnection from both work and loved ones. After attending a workshop on emotional authenticity, Taylor hesitantly tried expressing frustration with a trusted colleague and later discussed sadness openly with their spouse. What followed was not collapse or chaos, but a palpable release. Tension eased, new understanding blossomed in relationships, and vital energy began to return. Taylor's classroom dynamic improved. Students mirrored their authenticity and openness, creating a healthier, safer environment for everyone. Dr. Brené Brown's theories further reinforce why this approach works. When emotions are expressed honestly, the capacity for resilience grows. Relationships deepen through trust, and guilt or shame about having feelings naturally shrinks. Consistent self-expression provides the validation that suppression crudely withholds, nourishing self-respect as well as social connection. There is significant intensity to this shift. Every instance of choosing expression over silence becomes a vote for long-term health and sustainable well-being. This is why emotional expression is non-negotiable in the quest for genuine well-being. Allowing your feelings a voice signals to body and mind alike that you matter, that your inner world is worthy of care and understanding. Suppression, while tempting as a short-term shield, extracts a steep toll, slowly eroding strength and connection. By affirming your commitment to this path, you pave the way for a far deeper kind of strength, one built not on facades, but on real, steady ground. Turning emotional expression into a practice you can depend on, each day starts with the simple, but often courageous act of slowing down and paying close attention to your inner world. Begin your journey by setting aside just 5 minutes every evening to reflect quietly on your day. In that pause, ask yourself, what emotion stood out most strongly for me today? Don't worry about articulating it perfectly. Any word or short phrase like frustrated, relieved, or disappointed will do. Acknowledge that feeling to yourself, either by saying it out loud while you're alone or writing it in a private journal. This act tells your mind that what you feel matters, making it less likely you'll overlook deeper emotions in the future. As comfort builds, move on to structured expression exercises, such as expressive writing. Allocate 10 minutes to write without stopping about something that triggered an emotional response, letting words flow without censoring your thoughts or worrying about grammar or neatness. If writing doesn't appeal to you, speaking aloud to yourself or trusted people can provide the same sense of validation and release. Gradually, introduce these small check-ins to moments of stress during the day, a silent recognition of tension before a meeting, a steadying breath as you silently name your unease, or a private acknowledgement of nerves before a difficult conversation. These moments of recognition might feel minor, but each one is a small victory. Over time, they add up, building self-confidence, lowering anxiety, and making honest expression a new default. Consider expanding your emotional vocabulary by learning to describe your feelings more specifically. Instead of falling back on broad labels like upset or fine, challenge yourself to refine the emotion. Was it disappointment, irritation, anticipation, or embarrassment? There are lists and charts of emotions available, but even just scanning for nuance makes your self-understanding richer and the act of expression more effective. If you notice yourself hesitating to share what you feel even with yourself, remind yourself that all emotions are safe to notice, and expressing them is simply a practice in self-care, not weakness. To multiply the benefits, try sharing one genuine emotional statement daily with a trusted friend, family member, or partner, something as simple as "I feel happy to be with you," or "Today left me feeling a little discouraged." The practice doesn't require deep confessions. It's about normalizing honest emotion in small increments. Each interaction further reduces the urge to suppress and supports deeper, warmer relationships. By turning checks for emotional expression into gentle habits, you teach your nervous system that you can experience any emotion safely and recover well, while sending the deeper message that you are worthy of understanding and support. Each step you take, however modest, is a form of progress, a movement away from the cost of inversion and toward the rewards of authenticity. Celebrate the little bits of ease you feel after journaling, the support received in honest conversations, or a subtle drop in muscle tension. This sense of momentum is vital for lasting change. Looking ahead, the next chapter will unlock ways to integrate and honor every part of your emotional landscape, helping you embrace the full spectrum of human experience as a foundation for genuine growth. If these exercises have helped or inspired you, we invite you to subscribe to Mindset Liberation, add your stories or reflections in the comments, and signal your support for this journey of courage and healing. Your voice may light the way for others, and together we can build a culture where expression, not suppression, leads to lasting strength. Chapter 6: Embracing the Full Spectrum. There is extraordinary power in no longer seeing your emotions in black and white, but welcoming every shade of your inner world as worthy and valuable. The solution at the heart of this chapter is integration, guiding yourself to experience and accept the entire range of human feelings without trying to label them as good or bad. Far too often, people force themselves to cling to happiness while running from fear, anger, envy, or grief. But the truth is that genuine joy and resilience only flourish when you give yourself permission to feel everything, from hope to heartbreak, from pride to vulnerability. This realization doesn't mean you are doomed to chaos or sadness. It means you become fully alive, with access to far more wisdom and vitality than before. The origin of this common struggle often lies in childhood and is reinforced by social circles and popular culture. For many, growing up meant watching adults minimize negative emotions, urging kids not to cry or get angry, and to move on quickly from disappointment. The lesson gets internalized. Some emotions are welcome, others must be hidden away. As we grow, social media amplifies this bias, rewarding feel-good updates and masking the inevitable lows of real life. According to a study from the University of Melbourne, over 65% of people admit to filtering the emotional content they share, while suppressing even honest feelings they experience offline. Yet, psychologist Dr. Susan David explains, discomfort is the price of admission to a meaningful life. Courage is not an absence of fear. Courage is fear walking. Consider the example of Olivia, a young artist who chronicled only her sunny, creative bursts online and rarely talked about the self-doubt or competition she also felt. For years, she tried to overcome frustration, anxiety, and creative blocks by willing them away or replacing them with forced positivity. The harder she fought, the more disconnected she felt, not just from others, but from her own inspiration. It was not until Olivia began sharing with a support group, expressing both her uncertainty and her ambition, that her tension eased and her motivation returned anew. She found comfort in shared stories of struggle. The process of letting in the full spectrum, listening to joy, boredom, confidence, and jealousy alike, inspired new confidence in her work and allowed her to experience creative flow she thought she'd lost forever. Expert voices continually affirm that integration is not only possible, but essential. Psychotherapists point out that those who make space for all their emotions have stronger relationships, better health, and deeper empathy. Integration leads to a sense of wholeness, as opposed to the fragmentation that comes from living only in emotional extremes. This message is powerful. Your complexity is your strength. Embracing your emotional range can help you respond, rather than react, to what life brings, calm amid chaos, hope alongside fear, purpose even in uncertainty. By choosing to embrace your full emotional spectrum, you undertake one of the most self-affirming journeys possible. This is how you reclaim your narrative, deepen your capacity for compassion, and access a broader, more authentic sense of happiness. The journey won't make you invulnerable, but it will make you real, wise, and empowered to live with courage and heart. The effectiveness of embracing the full spectrum of emotions lies in its profound alignment with how our minds heal, learn, and ultimately thrive. Modern psychological science repudiates the old idea that resilience is the result of denying hardship or pushing painful feelings away. Instead, research reveals that those who welcome the full breadth of their emotions, not just happiness and excitement, but also grief, envy, frustration, or fear, enjoy better stress management, richer relationships, and greater long-term life satisfaction. The principle is straightforward, yet transformative. Emotional integration makes us less fragile when hardship comes, because nothing inside us is shamed, forced into hiding, or exiled. We do not waste precious energy fighting what we feel, and instead redirect those energies into meaningful reflection, problem-solving, and restorative self-care. A compelling body of evidence backs up this approach. Studies led by Dr. Danielle Knafo in clinical psychology have shown that adults who identify, accept, and work with their uncomfortable emotions report significantly lower rates of depression and anxiety. Rather than overwhelming their nervous systems, these individuals exhibit greater physiological flexibility. Heart rates recover faster from stress, and adaptive thinking increases in difficult situations. This mirrors findings from mindfulness research, such as that by Dr. John Kabat-Zinn, in which participants who practice compassionate attention to the variety of their emotions, even the unpleasant ones, see improvements in immune function and reductions in self-critical thoughts. The takeaway is unsurprising but empowering. You are not weakened by what you feel, but by refusing to accept it. The power of full-spectrum acceptance shines in the transformation of Leonard, a respected physician who spent most of his career stuffing down grief and anxiety. For decades, Leonard considered any intrusions of sadness after the loss of a patient or frustration over endless hospital bureaucracy as evidence of personal weakness. To cope, he increased his workload and isolated from colleagues. Life became gray, joyless, and increasingly exhausting. Only in the aftermath of a serious health scare did Leonard confront the toll of his avoidance. Guided by an experienced therapist, Leonard was encouraged to name each emotion as it arose, no matter how unwanted or contradictory. For the first time, he allowed himself to grieve, to voice fears about his profession, and even to sit quietly with envy for peers who seemed more at peace. This practice, though painfully honest, allowed sadness to soften and old wounds to be aired and mended. The effect rippled outward. Leonard's mood lifted. He rediscovered compassion for his patients, and his marriage, once strained by emotional coldness, found new warmth. The urgency of integrating every part of your emotional life cannot be overstated. When we continually divide our experiences into acceptable and unacceptable, we become fractured and brittle. Embracing the entire spectrum, by contrast, makes you strong at the broken places and whole in the very places you once felt empty. Your full emotional presence gives you the clarity to respond wisely instead of reacting out of habit or fear. It also frees you to connect more deeply with others, because all of their feelings become welcome in your company too. In a world where resilience is often equated with toughness, the truth may feel counterintuitive. Strength is found in dissolving the borders within yourself, welcoming every note, every color, every shade of life's experience. Embracing your full emotional spectrum begins with the courageous and gentle daily act of pausing to notice what you are truly feeling. Set aside a quiet moment every morning or evening to sit with yourself and simply ask, which emotions are with me right now? Without trying to change or judge what arises, just let each emotion have a brief moment in your awareness. Instead of rushing to fix discomfort or cling to fleeting happiness, imagine each feeling as a visitor with a story to tell. This shift in mindset, from policing your inner world to welcoming it, opens the door to deeper self-understanding and healing. A practical technique you can start immediately is the color check-in. On a piece of paper, jot down several colors, each representing a mood or feeling you may have that day. Blue for calm, red for frustration, yellow for hope, gray for fatigue, green for jealousy, etc. Let yourself select more than one color if that reflects your reality. By visualizing emotions in this way, you remove some of the judgment and invite curiosity. Take 60 seconds to reflect on why those colors showed up today. That visual cue can make it easier to articulate what was previously unspoken and gives your mind permission to honor the complexity of your experience. Another exercise is to practice emotional integration in real time, especially during moments when you notice a reaction rising, whether it's irritation in traffic, the sting of a critique at work, or a wave of envy scrolling through social media. Instead of turning away, take 3 deliberate breaths and inwardly name the feeling, then gently acknowledge, "It's okay for me to feel this right now." The point is not to indulge or prolong distress, but to let every emotion be counted as part of your reality. Make a note in your phone or a small diary of what you observed, and if you're able, add one line about how letting yourself feel created some relief or new perspective. Small wins, like feeling a drop in muscle tension or realizing that an uncomfortable emotion subsided naturally when welcomed, will reinforce your progress and rewire your responses over time. You can deepen this habit by sharing one of your less celebrated emotions with a trusted friend or family member. Instead of talking only about the good or neutral things, allow yourself to mention, "I felt anxious at work today," or "I had a jealous moment and it surprised me." Speaking these truths, even briefly, reduces shame and amplifies courage. With repeated practice, expressing your whole range of emotions, privately and socially, builds authentic relationships and teaches your mind that it no longer has to hide. Celebrate these first shifts, whether it's noticing you weren't as hard on yourself or realizing you savor happy moments more fully because you're no longer glossing over the hard ones. Each honest encounter with your inner world breaks the habit of self-censorship and shows you a broader, more compassionate way to live. Next, prepare to explore how authentic emotion fuels genuine, sustainable personal growth and reveals strengths you didn't know you had. This is the turning point at which self-acceptance becomes your foundation and real transformation accelerates. If you're feeling the positive momentum of these steps, subscribe to Mindset Liberation, share your favorite new technique in the comments, or leave a note about what full spectrum living is doing in your life so far. Each voice of encouragement lights the way for others, keeping our shared journey alive. Chapter 7. Real Growth, Real Emotions. Authentic personal growth doesn't spring from ignoring struggle or maintaining a picture-perfect outlook. Instead, it emerges from the willingness to stand with your real emotions, letting them inform, motivate, and ultimately strengthen you. The heart of true transformation is emotional engagement. Honestly noticing your feelings, learning from them, and using this wisdom to foster lasting change. For too long, mainstream self-help and performance culture have elevated grit, discipline, and overcoming at any cost, often excluding the need to pause and actually process what's unfolding in your inner landscape. It's not surprising that studies now show many people hit a wall with their self-improvement, not because they lack tools, but because they dismiss or bypass what they genuinely feel. The origins of emotional engagement as a growth strategy lie in a shift currently taking hold in psychology and neuroscience. For decades, the focus was on correcting bad habits or amplifying willpower. But experts like Dr. Kristen Neff, pioneer of self-compassion research, have revealed that cultivating awareness of your pain, fears, joy, and mistakes without rushing to judge or fix breeds resilience while reducing cycles of guilt and avoidance. A landmark study by psychologist Carol Dweck, famed for her work on growth mindset, highlighted that viewing setbacks through an emotion-informed lens, acknowledging, then reflecting on disappointment, frustration, and hope, led to greater improvement over time than blankly bouncing back without consideration. Strength, it turns out, grows root deep only when you allow yourself emotional honesty along the journey. The reality of this practice is ubiquitous, woven quietly into stories of everyday growth. Consider the experience of Daniel, a mid-career professional laid off unexpectedly after years of loyalty to his company. At first, Daniel forced himself to treat his job loss as just another challenge, berating himself for moments of worry or regret. It was only after speaking with a counselor that he stopped racing through the motions and actually paid attention to his grief and anxiety. By journaling his reactions, sitting with the discomfort, and naming the whole range of feelings triggered by the layoff, Daniel released his fear of failure. Over time, this made space for real insight into his strengths and values. Insight he then used to seek new work in a field more aligned with his passion and principles. Daniel's turning point didn't arrive from a new resume technique or an external pep talk. It began when he let his emotions have a seat at the decision-making table. Statistics reinforce the value of this approach. According to a survey published by the American Psychological Association, people who regularly engage with their emotions, not just positive ones, but curiosity about sadness, regret, or shame, report significantly greater goal achievement, adaptability, and satisfaction. Dr. Susan David, author of Emotional Agility, emphasizes that rigidity in the face of emotional experience is what gets us stuck. Emotional agility, moving with our feelings rather than against them, is the core of progress. This doesn't mean being led by every feeling or dwelling endlessly on negativity, but developing the habit of listening, learning, and acting in ways rooted in your emotional truth. By welcoming your full, authentic emotional experience, you not only break the cycle of surface-level change, but ignite instead a journey of real, sustainable growth. It's here that the impossible becomes possible, not in hiding difficult feelings, but in engaging and evolving through them. The power to shape your life, your mindset, and your sense of what's next has always been yours, waiting for emotional honesty to unlock the way. Engaging authentically with your real emotions creates a powerful catalyst for change because it aligns your internal world with your external actions, dissolving the psychological tension that arises when you attempt to suppress or bypass what you actually feel. Recent advances in neuroscience have deepened our understanding of why this approach succeeds where superficial positivity fails. Emotional signals serve as data. They tell you what matters, where you need to pay attention, and what wounds require healing. When you allow yourself to fully experience and articulate these signals, your brain's emotional and rational centers communicate more fluidly, shifting you from reactive cycles toward mindful decision-making and creative problem-solving. Functional MRI studies conducted by Dr. Matthew Lieberman at UCLA have shown that labeling one's emotions lowers activity in the amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for fear and impulsive reactions, while increasing recruitment of the prefrontal cortex, which governs planning, focus, and long-term vision. In simple terms, naming and facing your emotions restores order to mental processes that stress or denial would otherwise scramble. There is also increasing evidence that engaged emotional honesty actually fortifies resilience, making individuals better equipped to learn from setbacks rather than crumble beneath them. A robust longitudinal study in the journal Emotion tracked participants over several years and found that those who consistently reflected on and allowed their difficult feelings reported more successful adaptation after adversity. They demonstrated greater tenacity, developed more accurate self-assessments, and recovered their motivation much faster. By contrast, those who masked their pain or brushed discomfort aside were more prone to discouragement, indecision, and a chronic sense of stagnation. The transformative power of genuine emotional engagement can be seen in the story of Kim, a new entrepreneur. When her first product launch flopped after months of work, Kim was crushed but felt pressure from the hustle culture to never show doubt or sadness. She distracted herself with busy work and painted on misplaced bravado for friends. However, her creativity dried up and her stress levels soared. Everything changed once she started attending a peer-led support group. Encouraged to acknowledge her disappointment, discouragement, and even flashes of envy towards more successful peers, Kim gradually let go of her self-criticism. Guided by her real feelings, she made peace with short-term failure, refocused her goals, and soon gained the courage to test new ideas with a fresh sense of purpose. The emotional honesty she practiced did not magically erase all discomfort, but gave shape to new hope and lasting wisdom that proved crucial to her next successful venture. This method's seriousness cannot be understated. To ignore authentic feelings is to constantly argue with your own reality, creating a permanent undercurrent of stress and disengagement. Inviting your emotions fully into your growth journey equips you to outlast setbacks, adapt to unpredictability, and stay true to your deepest purpose. Emotional engagement is not about losing control to feelings, but about learning to use them as internal guideposts so you can move forward with clarity and integrity. In facing real emotions with presence and intention, you open pathways to genuine accomplishment, an achievement far greater and more durable than anything rooted in denial or mere surface-level cheerfulness. Bringing authentic emotion into your growth process begins with small, deliberate steps that make space for feelings at every stage of your journey. Start each morning or evening with a mindful 5-minute check-in. Close your eyes, take a slow breath, and quietly ask yourself, what emotion is strongest in me right now? Try to name it specifically, perhaps irritation, anticipation, grief, pride, or even bittersweet relief. Allow yourself to feel it without arguing or analyzing. There is no correct emotional state to reach, only the act of presence. This honest acknowledgement is where momentum begins, as it signals to your psyche that your full self belongs in every chapter of your life. To advance from naming to learning from your emotions, use a journal or digital notes to write a brief account of a recent setback or win. Complete the following prompts. What did I feel about this event? And what did that feeling teach me? This practice gently retrains your mind to see every emotion, not as a barrier but as data. Disappointment may prompt you to alter your approach, while excitement could signal core values worth exploring. As you journal consistently, small patterns appear. Maybe you notice repeated anxiety in specific situations, or joy in unexpected acts of creativity, and these insights become stepping stones for action. Soon, you will find that reviewing your journal fosters deeper self-trust and curiosity about your own growth process. When facing particularly challenging feelings, introduce the emotion pause technique. In a difficult moment, instead of instantly reacting or self-criticizing, pause for a minute, place a hand on your heart or another grounding gesture, and quietly say to yourself, "It's okay to feel this. This feeling doesn't define me, but it has something to show me." Over time, this creates new neural pathways of self-soothing and makes it easier to stay grounded, even in adversity. Try pairing this with a gentle movement, such as stretching or walking, to help your body process the emotion physically as well. Bring this openness into your daily decisions by getting in the habit of asking before any significant choice or response, what is my real feeling here, and how might it guide me wisely? By acting in alignment with your genuine emotions, even if it means postponing an answer or admitting uncertainty, you reinforce your belief that emotional truth is an asset, not a hurdle. Each time you give a voice to your authentic feeling, whether in a conversation or internal dialogue, you build a little more resilience and clarity. Acknowledge and celebrate small wins often. Notice a day when you check in and realize you're less tense, or an evening when you're able to share a difficult feeling and feel relieved instead of judged. These victories, no matter how modest, show you that progress comes from honest presence and acceptance, not just from hitting external milestones. With repetition, authenticity becomes a new normal, creating a sustainable foundation for growth that outlasts fleeting moods or setbacks. Continue weaving these skills into your life, encouraging yourself like a steadfast friend when it feels awkward or tough. In time, real growth will reveal itself in deeper self-knowledge, steadier confidence, and a sense of connection to every emotion that life brings. As these practices gain traction, your emotional range transforms from a perceived liability into a wellspring of clarity, wisdom, and lasting fulfillment. As you reach the conclusion of this journey, remember that true well-being lies not in keeping up a polished front, but in embracing the complete, often messy spectrum of human emotion. From exposing the harm caused by compulsive positivity to learning how to heed your own internal alarms, and then courageously expressing and integrating all parts of your emotional experience, this book has revealed the power and necessity of living authentically. Real personal growth does not come from denying struggle or forcing a cheerful mask, but from allowing yourself the honesty and freedom to feel, reflect, and learn from each emotional current. By practicing conscious acceptance, breaking the habit of suppression, and giving your feelings a safe space each day, you pave the way to resilience, joy, and genuine connection within yourself and in your relationships. Thank you for dedicating your time and attention to explore these vital truths and solutions. If these insights have resonated with you or inspired a change in your perspective, please support Mindset Liberation by liking, commenting with your thoughts or experiences, and subscribing to the channel. Every story and every voice deepens our understanding and strengthens this community of courage and authenticity.